And we are live.
Mm.
Hey, Fab Squad, it's Dr. Jamie here, your lifestyle pharmacist, and it is time for another episode of Live with the Fab Squad. And I want to welcome you and thank you all for tuning in with us. And I want to thank you all in advance for sharing this broadcast and also for those of you who will be catching the replay. Tonight's topic is one that I am so excited to jump into. I'll do a little brief intro about who I am, and I'm going to then let our guest, our very special guest, introduce herself, and you all are in for a treat. So let me get my little intro out the way so that we can get on with our special guest. But I'm Dr. Jamie Hardy, the lifestyle pharmacist, and I'm a board certified pharmacist, a speaker, a best-selling author, a wife, a big sister, a friend, a mentor, a colleague. And, my whole mission in this life is to help women to be fit, fabulous, and fulfilled without prescribed pills. And I do that by helping them to exercise, eat healthier, effectively manage their stress, and to just activate the power of their food, actions, and their belief systems so that we can live the very best life that we can. And so a part of my platform is bringing my super friends, women that I know, trust, and love before you all. And so that's exactly what we are doing again tonight for this episode that's titled Weathering the Financial Storm. And we have a money maven, a powerhouse in the financial industry here to share with us tonight, to give us some tips and some strategies, some tried and true principles that she lives, that she teaches through her company, Amount Financial, and that is none other than Dr. Nicole Garner Scott. So, Dr. Nicole, thank you so much for being here with us, for coming to Memphis virtually to share with the Fab Squad tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Jamie. It is such an honor to be here. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Jamie when I lived in Memphis, and we have been in touch ever since. And I just thought she was fabulous. So when I heard of the Fab Squad, I was like, I gotta be a part.
Yes.
And so I'm very excited to just have for us to get together and talk about money in a fun way, right?
Yeah.
Talk about money in a way that's relaxed. It's no shame attached to it. It's no question that you should ever feel embarrassed to ask. This is a great chance for us just to have some girlfriend dialogue. So I'm excited about it.
Yes. All right. So I'm not going to read your bio, but give the people an overview or like an intro of who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Dr. Nicole Garner Scott. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have been in the entrepreneur space for 15 years now. I got into the entrepreneur space with my marketing and PR agency, the Garner Circle PR. And in the last few years, I opened up my passion project, my impact business, which is Amount Financial. And through Amount Financial, we do money coaching and provide financial resources to help communities of color be able to build their legacies, create generational wealth through long-term generational assets. And so we do that through our membership, our Commonwealth digital membership, through the services that we provide, and then just myself and our other money coaches showing up to speak and to make talking about money less taboo in our communities.
Absolutely. I love that. And money is one of those topics that I don't feel that we as people of color talk about openly enough. Like you
Mhm.
said, there's a lot of shame and stigma and embarrassment surrounding, people's money situations. And we're never
Right.
going to break through that and overcome some of those things if we don't have honest and very candid conversation. And so in
Mhm.
that vein, that's exactly what we are going to do tonight. So I have to ask a question just right out of the gate, since we are still in this pandemic and we are seeing articles about, businesses being shuttered, how spending habits and abilities have decreased. Some businesses may not even be able to weather this storm and open up. So there are people who are really wanting to go get the bag, go get additional income streams and resources,
Mhm.
and create kind of like a safety net for their family during
Mhm.
this time. But is that even realistic? Can people really make more money in this period of shutdown or slowdown?
Yeah, definitely. If you and I don't want to put it out there like it's just the easiest thing ever, but if you are very focused on what your bottom line is and you're very committed to seeing that through, um, and you remove the emotion from how you gather in your income and how you gather in your resources, there's opportunities that are all around us. So a lot of us, in the beginning of the pandemic, you were watching the news, they were telling you the economy is crashing and everything is shutting down. And so it was the appearance that money stopped. But then you started cutting on the news and seeing articles about this industry thriving and these industries doing well. And, the top 1% got 0.1% even richer, right? The billionaires
Yes.
had 10 times in the last 90 days to 120 days. People who were around you who you felt like, oh, they're doing okay. All of a sudden, you're seeing that they're thriving. There's money moving. There's money flowing in this society, because the way that society works is a recession is a part of the cycle, right? So depending on how old you are, this is not my first recession. I don't know, Jim. You look so
Mine
young.
either.
I don't know if it's your, but if
No.
if anybody's watching and this is your first recession, this definitely won't be your last. That's the way that the economy works. It has its peaks and it has its valleys. But there are people who manage to do well in either of those because you start to really look at the opportunities that are being presented right now. So let's just name a few things right now that are doing well, right? So people can't go to the gym or are choosing not to go to the gym like they used to. So all the streaming apps, the exercise streaming apps are blowing through the roof. The online exercise professionals, they're booked, from top to bottom. And if you heard of that home bike, the Peloton,
Oh my gosh.
yes,
Everybody and their grandma almost, it seems like I'm seeing posts
right.
that they got a Peloton.
Yes, yes, Peloton. And because of that, me and my husband were looking at that stock last month. But the back order for Peloton right now was like 4 months before you can get yours in. Um,
Wow.
let's talk about Zoom. Let's even talk about the platform we're on, StreamYard. These things were doing fairly well, because they had to be doing fairly well for people to know about it and for it to be able to catch on like it is. They were doing fairly well, but they had not seen the numbers that they're seeing now. And so that's a wake-up call for many of us. What is the shift? What is the pivot? What is the pain point that people are experiencing around you that you can be the solution for and turn that flow of money towards your direction? Right. So that's when I said at the beginning, you want to kind of move your emotion out of it. Many of us, especially in the Black community, we're emotionally tied to what our business ventures are, right? So this is something you want to do ever since you were a little girl. You spent the last 10 years of your life dedicated to this. This is something that your mom passed down to you. I mean, just all these things that have you emotionally tied to it. But it might not work in today's society, right? It could have even worked 3 months ago, 4 months ago. But given how the economy has shifted and changed, it might not work right now. And so that is sitting down and figuring out your purpose, your overall purpose, and then figuring out how can you still live out that purpose just in another way to still make financial sense.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you talked about people having pain points, right? And so we all should be thinking about how we can be the solution to a problem that someone might be having. People are sitting around hoping, wishing, even praying for solutions
Mhm.
to some of these problems. And
Mhm.
we can be that solution. And we have
Yeah.
to tap into our purpose and kind of have like a mindset shift so that that flow of money can flow back to us. But even doing that in a way where we are serving others. I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to go a little bit deeper. If you guys are willing to go deep with me, but
Let's go.
um,
I'm down. Because look, I have my pen and my paper because I'm taking notes too. So,
so when it comes to being in times of a recession, it's not just about making money; it's creating money, right? And so that's where we want our mind shifts to happen. That's where we want our relationship with money to change? How can we create money during this time? And so a lot of my clients in the money coaching space, they feel like they have a budget problem. And I have to tell them from the beginning, it's not so much a budget problem, because you're saving everything you can save, right? You've cut the cord on cable. You don't go out to eat. You are doing things as frugal as possible, but you're still coming up short. So it's not necessarily a budget issue. It's more of a balance issue. And so I say balance issue is because you have only one way that money's coming in, but you have 10 ways that money's going back out. So the scale is off, right? And so that's when you start having to get creative, digging into your financial creativity, your financial gut right now, and listening. Start listening to where the opportunities lie for you to create money for yourself. And many of us have relied on corporate America, your 9 to 5, to push through these times, but because we don't know where anything stands, right? Like your job might be excellent right now, but who knows the residual effect of how things might happen in a year, right? There's some major things coming up that can affect certain economies. The elections is coming up that can affect some certain industries. With elections comes new laws, new taxation that could affect certain industries. We don't know where the pandemic is going. And so, if it spikes again in another part of the world, and that's where like importing and exporting happen, that might affect something. You just don't know where it goes. So we can't be in the space of putting all our eggs in one basket. We have to get to that space of saying, okay, I have multiple ways of bringing in money. And through that, then I alleviate myself from having to live in fear.
Oh, wow. And fear is a real thing. People
Mm-hmm.
do persist and live in this space, plagued by financial fear. And people even have um, negative memories associated with money, be it childhood experiences, things that happened while they were growing up. There's so many emotions and feelings and even circumstances tied to money that even impact us now that we're the adults and we're
Mm-hmm.
the decision makers in our homes, or the co-decision makers if you have a spouse or significant other that you
Mm-hmm.
make those decisions with. So I
Mm-hmm.
love that you really pointed out fear, because fear even holds us back in our finances.
It does. It does. It does. I did a live yesterday where I really dug deep into what we classify as financial trauma and financial PTSD, and how that really plagues the Black community. And we don't talk about that enough too, but I'll save that for a little further down in the conversation.
All right, sounds good. So, what about those individuals that, for a variety of reasons, there could be people that have limited sources of income, so that all of their income is consumed by paying for the essentials and the necessities. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's little money left between paychecks. And then there are others that may have a little more flexibility in their discretionary spending. And so they tend to overspend. And that can also create anxiety and spending, too much before the next paycheck comes. How can people, regardless of either bucket, cut out some of this unnecessary spending? Some people still are struggling. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of people that have been saying, oh my gosh, Dr. Jamie, I'm not going to the mall, I'm not going out, but I'm spending so much money shopping online. I get all these deals. I'm just spending so much money. How
Mm-hmm.
can people cut out some of this unnecessary spending?
Okay, so first, number one, let's get to the root of why you're doing the unnecessary spending, right? And so it's usually stemming from a void that you're feeling in some type of way. So some of my clients have gotten to the root of, they have Amazon packages coming to their house every day because they're starting to be consumed by fear, right? Like they're expressing that fear and that fear consumption into overspending. Or I have other clients that have dealt with burnout, right? So between the business hours getting blurred with working from home, to having to homeschool their kids, to being expected to be on every Zoom, and just so many different things, they're dealing with burnout, which is then causing them to be too tired to cook, too tired to get groceries. And so now they're Uber eating, right? And so through the pandemic, they have spent thousands on Uber Eats. And, just getting to the root of it, because then you have you know what you're dealing with, right? Once again, there's no shame associated with that, but getting to the root allows you to know what you're dealing with, because you don't want to just put a band-aid on the situation, because then you'll drop back into those same spending habits in another month or in another 2 months, because we didn't get to the root of it. So once you get to the root of it, you can start to figure out, how is that, why is that triggering me? What are the triggers? And then you could start to put some things in place to help you not fall into the trigger trap, right? So you put yourself in a space where it's like, let me just go ahead and buy groceries at the beginning of the week. And then that way I know I won't, spend a couple $100s on Uber Eats, because I'll look at myself and be like, I got all this food in the refrigerator.
fridge.
I won't even do it. Or you put apps on your phone that help you trigger when you have spent a certain amount, like the Digit app, and it'll, or the Charlie app is really good. The Charlie app will let you know where you're spending an inordinate amount of money. So the Charlie app will go through your expenditures and it'll say, hey, red flag, you have spent twice as much on Amazon this month than you have the last month. And that'll wake you back up. Like, that's a cold splash of water on your face. Like, whoa, I didn't even know I was doing that. So understanding those triggers, so you could start to put some things in place to help you deal with that in a positive way. That's first and foremost. Second off is creating a $0 or a zero-based spending plan. And so when I say this, I mean every dollar that comes into your life, you have to give it an assignment. And if you give it an assignment, if you give it a job, then it has purpose. But when it doesn't have purpose, it will just fly itself back into the universe with no regard, right? And so for the days when we were out, and spending, what is the so as soon as you got like $100 bill, you wanted to make sure that you did not start to crack that $100 bill open, because by the end of the day it would be
It
gone.
was gone, and you couldn't even remember what you spent it on.
Right. You started feeling yourself. You went to go get something to eat, and you said, "I want extra cheese. I want, give me the good stuff. I want extra. Who else wants something? I'm buying something for everybody. It's on me." As soon as you knew yourself, as soon as you cracked open that $100 bill, you're gonna have $5 to show at the end of the day. So you try to do whatever you could to not start to spend that 100. You would be like, I have 100, but that's not worth me busting this 100 open, because I already know what's going to happen from there. But because we live in a digital space, right? We have digital currency, and so many of our transactions happen online, and it's so instantaneous, and it feeds into our emotions of must have now, that we're not really keeping track of what's transpiring. And you can really start to spend on emotion way quicker than what you could. At least, years ago, you'd be like, well, I got to get the money out of my purse, or I have to go to an ATM.
Yeah, it was such a hassle. Now it's so easy.
Right. On the trip to the ATM, you'd be like, I really don't need that. Or, it would be some time to make you think. But now it's like, oh, these shoes are on sale. Now it's giving you all the cues. One pair left, get it now. We'll throw in an extra discount. And you're like, all right, okay, click, 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 click. And the shoes are here, and you can't even wear them anywhere, right?
Because where are you going?
And so if you give yourself, if you bring in, let's say, for instance, you bring in $4,000 a month, right? And so you allocate what you need to go towards all of your utilities, your prime basics, which is your rent or your mortgage, your car note, anything else that are mandatory expenditures, and you find that you have $1,000 left, right? A lot of people get in trouble when they don't give that extra $1,000 a job. So that's when you need to figure out, okay, this amount is going to retirement. So if you're in corporate America, you already have those things in place that take, put into your 401k and put into your IRA and
Yeah.
whatnot before you see it. But for all the entrepreneurs, or for those of us who have, or entrepreneurs, where we have the main business but we have the side business, you tend to be very lax with some of that future planning. So still remembering to do future planning in that space now more than ever, right? Figuring out what are some long term, what are some major long-term goals that you have coming up. Are you wanting to purchase a house? Then some of the money needs to go to your house fund. Are you needing to get a new laptop because so much is happening, in the online space, and your computer is like shutting down, every 10 minutes because it's old? Do you have some things that you need to upgrade so that your child can homeschool correctly? You just different things, right?
Yeah.
All these things, and then of course always contributing to your emergency savings at the same time. You
Oh
know,
my gosh.
until
Yes.
until you can pack that emergency savings out, making sure that you're contributing to that. By the time you put those dollars into all those buckets, you really don't have an extra thousand just laying around. All that money has been attributed to something, and that's how you get yourself into the space of a zero-based budget, right? You get yourself into a space of you have given an assignment to every dollar that enters your life. And this is a great chance too, once you build out your emergency savings, once you start to put some money back into the market and make your money work for you, it's a great time for you to build out the things that you know are going to come up, right? Like, that a car only goes so many years without it needing some major maintenance. Why not
Hmm.
already have a fund that is,
Set
that,
aside for
yeah,
that.
for that.
I
You
love it.
already know that by the time we're able to travel again, your travel itch is going to be through the roof because we had to sit down this whole year. You already know you're going to want to do that. Why not budget for that? Um, and then it's a easy, smooth transition to do those things. You want to go out the country, you want to take your trip, you already have that travel fund in place, instead of you pulling money out of an emergency fund, because then you start to undo the positive
Yeah.
behavior that you had.
Yeah,
So
all that great work and discipline that you utilize by giving your money an assignment, you were able to save some money and then you pulled it right back out to go on the trip. But if you plan now and start putting a little bit away, my grandmother used to talk about this coffee can that she and some
mhm,
of her friend girls had. And they all had a coffee can in the kitchen because they knew eventually the refrigerator was going to go out or there was going to be this big, expenditure at some point in life. And they
right.
would be, just putting a little bit back, putting a little bit back. And we could still apply some of those same old
Mhm.
school principles that work. So I
Yeah,
love everything you're talking about.
thank you. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So speaking of this emergency fund, so for those who are not yet there, who don't have, that emergency fund in place, what is the number that people should be aspiring to achieve? Is it, a month of income or a month of expenses, 3, 6, 9? I've seen all sorts of numbers in different pieces of literature. So what's a good starting point for people that are getting started with having an emergency fund?
Sure. So typically you see 3 to 6. That was
Okay.
that was the norm before the pandemic. But now we're saying 6 to 8, because that time to get back into the job, into the marketplace, might be a little bit longer, right? Like the interview process, recruiters are not as plentiful as they used to be. Some of those other things. So you just want to put yourself into a good space that you feel very comfortable, that you can cover your cost of living, that's adjusted to a bit of a slower pace with the pandemic.
Okay.
Yep. So definitely 6 to 8 if you can. If you feel like you don't know how you're going to get to 6 to 8, then something's better than nothing, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you don't want to beat yourself up or put yourself into any type of depression because you can't reach 8, because it's, once again, something's better than nothing. But if you can, if your job is stable right now, your stream of income is stable right now, and you can get up to 8 months, then that is a good sweet spot. um, just because the economy is moving a little slower.
Okay. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
6 to 8 months. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For the emergency fund. So I did a little bit of reading about you as I was preparing to sit down with you today. And I was so excited to see on your website that you have, and I hope I haven't missed it, that you have a book launching
Yes,
soon.
I
All right,
do.
it's called Making Space for Wealth. And I
Yes.
was so intrigued by the title. So without giving too much away, I don't want this to be a spoiler alert where you get on with Dr. Jamie and just give the book front to back, cover to cover, insides and all. But, what does it mean for a person to make space for wealth?
So, well, thank you for bringing that up. The book will be out this fall, and
Okay.
under a woman Black owned publishing house. So I'm a big fan. It's called 13th and Joan, and I'm very excited to be working with them on this. But what I noticed for myself, through my own life experiences, through many of my coaching clients, through friends, through family, everyone has this number in their head of where they want to be financially, right? You want to be at 6 figures, you want to be at 7 figures. By the time you make 150,000, 250,000, whatever, 50,000, whatever that number is, you feel like everything is just going to be a-okay. But you've done nothing in your life to prepare for that moment. So making space for wealth is about getting everything in order so that when you start to bring in this wealth into your life, that this wealth can grow, that this wealth can stay and not immediately leave you, and so that this wealth can be passed down. So from everything from understanding your level of financial literacy to know areas that you need to grow in, to identifying who your dream team, your dream money team is, like who will be your accountant, who will be your wealth manager, who will be your wealth coach, who will be your investment specialist, who will be your real estate agent, who are all the people around you that you need to have in position so that when you get this money, you're not spending the first year trying to figure out who can you trust and who do you need to go to and what needs to happen from there. You've already built that solidified Rolodex. Also, just auditing your life, right? So that, many times, if we're not living in alignment, if we're not creating space in our life, then we'll get that money in and it'll go right back out because we didn't have things working in order to be able to properly do right by that sum of money that's coming in. So those are some of the things that we cover in the book.
Oh, I love that. And having a money team, having people in place, experts in place to help you to navigate this new space, because most of us don't come from this place of money. So this will be new, a new experience, new territory, very, uncharted for many of us. And so
Mm-hmm.
just having people to help us to navigate that and manage it and do it the right way is
Yeah.
so important. Because I just think about, and this is not to knock anybody, but I've seen, these stories that have come on, like, television about professional athletes and
Mm-hmm.
how, they're not financially literate. They come from a place of poverty and they have no idea how to even approach life with these millions of dollars that are, accessible to them. And then,
And
years down the line, they
even
don't have
outside of that,
anything.
yeah,
Yeah.
even outside of approaching millions, how many young Black kids are thrust with financial decisions at 18 years old that they're not prepared for,
To
right?
make, yeah.
That's the reason why everyone's still paying off school loans in their 40s and then in their 50s. And that's why, credit scores are ruined very early in life and you spend a decade trying to rectify it. So when I say wealth, I don't even mean the billions and millions. I mean, just uh, money is currency and currency is energy. And when that energy
Mhm.
comes into your life, how are you being respectable with it? How are you treating it so that so that it flourishes, right? When that money comes
Yeah.
into your life, are you watering it? Are you planting it? Are you making sure it gets sunshine so that so that it's able to grow? And so even if that money opportunity is just making the right decision, being very well prepared to make the right decision, turning 18 and going to college and being presented with all the credit cards that you want in the world, and you knowing, not so much what you want in the moment, but what do you want to become, and you basing your financial decisions on that.
Yeah. 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 So true, Dr. Nicole. So this one's a little heavy. That's why I had to do this whole deep breath before I even got into this one. But I couldn't have you with me and we not talk about some of the structural and systemic inequalities weaved into the fabric of the American financial system. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
just is what it is, right? I'm just going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So, knowing that is happening in the background, it's intertwined in everything that we experience, relationships with banks, being approved for a mortgage loan, even the interest rate that we get on cell phones, all of these things are in place. And
Mm-hmm.
some people knew this, but I think now in the climate, with so many things being more openly discussed, even the things that are existing and plaguing us financially are getting more discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that being said, how can Black communities and communities, of color overcome these pitfalls, these traps that have been set and laid for us for years and years and years in this country, just so that we can have a better financial situation for our family and ultimately our community?
So yeah, let's dig deep into that, because that's definitely something I'm very passionate about, and it's the racial wealth gap, right?
Yeah.
And the racial wealth gap has pretty much, it was already extreme, right? So when you look at the um, net worth of the Black family, before the pandemic, it was 17,000. According to the Brookings Institute, and for the net worth of the average white family was 171,000. So it was drastic, a 10 times difference as to what the net worth in these households were for different family segues. But the pandemic has almost doubled and exasperated those numbers. And so with that, things that were already starting to truly affect Black and Brown communities has become almost debilitating in certain areas. And I just feel like it's very important that we draw as much attention to this as possible. So through housing, you'll start to see, I believe it was the New York Times just released an article about the level of evictions that are about to start happening across the nation in marginalized communities. So Black communities, Hispanic communities,
Yeah.
just any minority segment across the board, how the level of evictions are about to skyrocket, because the empathy of the country has gone. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was like, "Oh, we're all together. Let's hold hands. Let's get through this together." Landlords were like, "We get it. You're not bringing in money. We'll be there for you." But now everyone is like, "I gotta fend for myself. I gotta eat
Yeah.
too. I gotta, like I could only care so much before I go underwater as well." So that's the point where we're at right now. And so many landlords are having to make that tough decision and start putting people out in certain markets. Some markets are able to provide some assistance, but there's still a timeline on that assistance too. So the housing market, which was already skewed from redlining and from loan declines and those things, and now add the pandemic on top of that. Then you have the school systems, right? And so you can read or Google up, just all the topics on these pods that are forming, right? And so you have these pods that are forming where you have very affluent families who are like, great, we'll just get a private teacher who's like $150,000. We'll tell two or three of our closest friends. we'll have a chef that comes and does, school lunch and school snacks. And,
Yep.
we'll keep moving our family forward. Where you have other families that, they might be in a neighborhood where internet is bad. They have to use a school provided laptop, which might be good and it might not, just depending upon the relationships that school has with technology partners.
Yeah.
Some have brand new Macs that are being given, and others have laptops where they're just trying to make it happen for the kids. Then you have, kids that their means of eating and staying refreshed and vibrant so they can learn happen with school lunch.
Yeah.
And now they're going back to being in homes where food is a scarcity again. There's no free lunch when you're at home. There's no lunch, and so the education side of things, and even the labor market. When you look at a lot of the first responders that
Yes.
that continuously put their lives on the line, it was mostly our communities, right?
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
communities that were being impacted when you were thinking about how the world was still kind of moving, how you were still, able to make it to the doctor, still get some of your packages, still someone picked up the phone. It was mostly Black people,
It
Black and
was
brown
us.
people, yeah,
Yeah.
that were keeping the world going, when you were going to the
Yes.
grocery store, all those different things. And so through that, the pressure has intensified. And unfortunately, there has been a lot of lives that has been lost in our communities too. And in that loss of life is where the racial wealth gap and the generational gap has widened, right? Because you have people who are passing away in very large numbers that don't have wills in place, right? So the house that grandmother owned, dad owned, aunt owned, cousin owned, there was no will in place to say this house will stay in this
In the
family.
family. Yes.
Mhm. And so on top of that, through the grieving process, it's like now we have to figure out how to gain access to what belonged to us anyway. There's no trust, in place that laid out any type of directives. There was no box. We call it a legacy box, where we help our clients do, or a legacy binder is another tool that we're using for our clients. But there's no central place to say, these are all the properties I own. These are the bank accounts I have. For like our mothers and grandmothers, many of them came up in a time where they had these secret bank accounts, right?
Yeah.
The escape money. Like if granddaddy is acting too crazy, or great granddaddy decide he want to lose his mind, then grandma got a secret account and she could go handle what she needs to, right? But if no one knows that account existed,
Right.
and with what's happening with the pandemic, and for any reason grandmother passes, then it's like your money is just being dissipated into the air. The
Yeah.
government is getting very rich on our communities not having those things in place. The property is going back to the state.
Yes.
Banks are not releasing access to funds because there's no way to confirm that. I mean, just so many different things are happening. And so that's why I'm
Right.
very glad that you're having this serious moment, and we're bringing this back to the forefront of getting those things in order, having those things in place, so that you can allow yourself to just grieve and not add on the additional stress of having to figure out what to do with everything in the midst of that.
Right. 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 And this is a conversation that I hope many people will feel inclined to have. Hopefully, if you've been, saying, okay, I'm going to sit down and talk with my family about, where all the important papers are, and, access to the accounts, and the deed to the land, the deed to the house. We must have these conversations, because if we do not protect our assets, then they are up for grabs from other people who have never had our best interest at heart. People
Mhm.
are sitting back, waiting for homes and properties to be lost for non-payment of property tax.
Mhm.
Like, this is a real thing. And if we don't have our business in order, then someone else is going to happily swoop in and take things that are rightfully ours. Our inheritance can be lost.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. So true.
So yeah, so having that binder or that box, families, we have to have these conversations. All right. I'm not gonna beat it in the ground. I think I've emphasized it enough.
At
All
least
right.
we planted the seed. That's
Even
that's
Miss
the
Wanda.
thing. I never come to like beat it in your head or come with any type of making you feel a certain type of way. My whole goal is just to plant a seed. So the next
Yes.
time you get around your family, when you have your family Zoom next week and everybody's catching up, then you just drop a little bit in there. Hey guys, we need to start having these type of talks. If it's some resistance from some family members, then you do things like you just keep alerting them to it. And sometimes it can't come from you. So you grab this replay and you send it over to them like, oh, girl, this was so good. You should just, take a look at this. Or, Dad, when you get a chance, listen to this to this Facebook Live that I was listening to the other day. They said some really good stuff. Like you can let it come from somebody else. Could be me and Jamie could be the bad guy for you guys.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And we had a comment in the from one of our viewers that said, please get your business in order. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So you mentioned a couple of apps earlier on in our conversation, the Charlie app and the Digit app, just for helping people to kind of track, their expenses or even get alerts. Are there any others that we want to make sure we tell people about? Because I don't use either of those apps currently, and I'm definitely going to be checking into them myself.
Where technology is and the fintech space. I'm actually working with a partner right now on an app called the app, where it will serve as a digital financial platform that really gives access to marginalized communities as we turn to a cashless society. But there are so many apps that I feel like are very valuable. So one, not so much an app, but a website that does a great job of helping you capture what's going on financially is mint.com, mint.com, where you can upload and attach your bank account, your cards, your bills, everything. And so you can have in one hub what is going out and what is coming in. And then I suggest you look at that every day. You take a money minute, 60 seconds, just to see what's going out and what's coming in. And that's very, very important. If you want to check your credit score real quick, the Credit Karmas and all of those, they're good, but they're giving you just your consumer report. But it's good to flag anything because during the pandemic, there's a lot of fraudulent activity happening. People are trying to get creative with how to make money or save themselves, or, all types of things are happening. So you can have one of those apps that at least gives you the notifications on if there's any funny activity happening on your credit report. But you still want to get your actual annual credit report to know like your true numbers and do a deep dive into what's going on. And those are free right now too, just as a part of, the economy and what's happening. The Charlie app does a great job of going in and seeing where you have excessive amount of expenditures. So that one's good. Digit app does a great job of letting you know, just shooting you a quick reminder. You have $20,000 in your account. You have $2 in your account. Like it gives you that reminder. And then also, if you want to set new parameters, so you're changing, like you're creating a new zero for yourself. That's another activity I take some of my clients through. So if you were used to spending all the way down to zero, you want to start creating a new zero for yourself, redefining that zero. So you'll say, by the time I get to $500 in my account, I can't spend any more. That means I need to sit down. I can't order anything else. I got to eat what's already in the house. I can't meet up with anybody. No, nothing at 500. Then you increase that to 1,000. Then you increase that to 2,000, then 10,000. And then, preferably 20, 50, 100, whatever that is, where you start to look at, you get to a place where you're like, I have 50,000 in the account. And that means I can't do anything else because I know what I have going on in life, from mortgage to such and such to this to that I don't want to get below that threshold. And so the Digit app will help you create help you redefine your new zero. It'll give you alert that says, hey, because your bank will only go up to a certain number. I mean, it'll only go down to a certain number.
Yeah.
But so the Digit app, you can say, alert me when I get to 200 in my account, and it'll start to give you those alerts. Waze apps are, I'm sorry, wait, I'm thinking the map. Waze app is very good for invoicing and keeping track of what's going on financially in your business. FreshBooks is also great for that too, in regards to being able to send out invoices and doing everything from a technology perspective. Um, what else is really good? You Need a Budget is great if you're having a hard time just trying to figure out how to put your budget together and how to line everything up. You Need a Budget is very good for that. If you're wanting to start to try to get into investing and investments, Stash app does a lot of education, so that's really good. Robinhood is, where a lot of micro investments happen.
Yeah.
That's a good space too. Acorn is really good if you want to start micro investing for your retirement. So it's a ton of apps out there, but those are just, some of my
A few.
my
Some of your
tried.
faves.
Mhm.
Okay. That's tried and true. So we kind of talked a little bit about these unhealthy, emotions and unhealthy money relationships, and
Mhm.
how some of these fractured relationships, plague our decisions on a daily basis. So how can people heal? We say we got to heal our broken heart, get over that hurt. Well, there's some brokenheartedness even associated with money sometimes. So how can we, heal from some of that past money trauma? I know we talked about money trauma, and put that out there for people to really like to sit on that and really think about and reflect over some of the financial traumas that we have experienced. But how can we try to heal these painful money relationships?
So, a great exercise in therapy overall is really meeting yourself at that inner child, right? Like, where did that relationship start to get skewed with how you perceive things? And for many of us, the toxic behavior or the toxic nature of your relationship with money probably started in your childhood. So really addressing what are some of the negative things that you learned or started to look at money as in your childhood, so that you can start to rectify that in your adult years, right? So I'll give you a few examples. Many people were growing up with being told that money is evil, right? And so it might have been your grandmother, that money's evil. And, you don't want too much of it, and you don't want to, start chasing after it because it's evil. But it was never money that was evil. It was evil people that just happened to have money, right? And so once you understand that money amplifies whatever the nature of the person is, if that person is good spirited, if they, care about the world, if they are empathetic, if they are God fearing, then give them $1 million and watch them, do God's work with it, right? But if that person is all about self by any means necessary, out to take you out, etc., give them $1 million and watch them work. So getting past some of those narratives that have seeped into us very deeply. So money is evil is one. Two, frugality. Like, that was a relationship I had to personally heal myself, just being overly cheap. Right. And I understood the reason we grew up like that. It's like, you got to make ends meet. You got to figure things out. But that way of thinking started to cost me quality of life. Right. And so, and I started to notice it when I was in college, right? I remember I got like a car, and I was like, let me just get the cheapest car. I'm just zipping around on campus. It doesn't really matter. But by the time that car has broken down 4 times, you could have gotten a new car, right? You have this lemon, and this lemon could have been a brand new Lexus off the lot. By the time you have, the transmission has blown, a window has gotten stuck, sunroof won't close, a door. I mean, by the time you go through all those different things, it's like you had a car note, a very in,
Expensive one.
ex, expensive and inconvenient car note, right?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to take into account the opportunity cost, the time that your car broke down and you couldn't make it to work and you didn't get paid for that day, the time your car broke down and you couldn't be somewhere else that cost you money, right?
Yeah.
So all taking into account all those different things, that was a relationship I had to heal myself of just being overly frugal that it cost me quality of life.
Mm.
So yeah, so really getting to the root of that childhood relationship with money. Even I saw a meme the other day that said women don't be afraid to normalize luxury in your life, right?
Hmm.
And I looked at that, and generationally, you know, Black women, we haven't allowed ourselves luxury, right? We have normalized struggle. We have normalized the superwoman complex, being burned out, pushing ourselves to the max, giving the very last of what we have to everyone around us, never giving anything to ourselves, all those
Yes.
different things. And what does it get us? Being burned out and not even being able to show up fully, like we want to for those people that we love and the
Right.
people that are around us. So, even allowing yourself some luxury in your life so that you value you and you remind the world that you are to be valued is
Yes.
very important too.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And yeah, as women, we often do that. We give all of ourselves to everyone and everything else, and there's nothing left. And we're literally, physically, emotionally, financially sick
Hmm.
because of it.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So let's talk about, for those in the Fab Squad who are tuning in and have children. I'm not a mom yet, right? But I am around
Hmm.
children kind
Hmm.
of virtually. My husband is a principal, so children are at the heart of everything that he does, and so
Hmm.
the children are a big conversation in our household because of
Hmm.
education.
Hmm.
So we talked about the wealth gap, right? And we historically, generationally, were not born with these financial cushions. Some of the trust funds and all the things that have been set in place, in some families, that's not where most of us come from. So, but parents still have this desire to create a better life, a more solid financial situation, for their children.
Hmm.
But given these, disadvantages, and we're late to this whole wealth building party, so to speak, is this something realistic that parents can be striving to attain? This financial forecast that's so much, brighter and healthier and even wealthier for their children, knowing that they generationally and historically come from a place that has been financially lacking. How can parents still try to bring that to fruition?
So I think first it's very important to communicate to your children that they have an understanding of what systematic oppression is, right? And you do it at the level that they can understand it, but you don't want your child walking around feeling like they're not smart enough to be rich, or um, that it's their fault that they're not rich, or these other things, because that type of psyche um, puts you into a state of feeling like there's no hope anyway, right? And so, very much understanding that we live in a society that is not in support of seeing us be wealthy gives you a sense of awareness, right? And that awareness can make you more empowered because then you don't fall for the things, right? When you're getting a lot of false information, get this credit card, get that credit card, do this, do that, that's the way that you're going to win. You'll start to be more conscious that that is all marketing to play against, keeping me in a certain level.
Yeah.
So once you get the, like, once you, and that's I start those talks probably like real talks in teenage level way before they get to 18 and leave the house though. Once there's like understanding like 13, 14 and up, they can really grasp that concept of understanding the opposition that's out there so that you can rise above it and not get caught in it, right? So materialism is marketed to you. Consumerism is marketed to you. And if you feel like, oh, okay, America's on my side, America doesn't have anything against me, then you get caught up in the materialism. You get caught up in the consumerism. Like, cool, my friends at school are doing this, but it's like your friends at school have a whole different scenario, ecosystem that they're a
Yes.
part of, right? They have
Right.
it's inheritance that's coming to them if they make bad decisions. School has been paid for years ago. There's a trust,
Yes.
and as soon as they turn 18, all they have to do is stay off of drugs and they'll be millionaires, right? Like that. It's a different ecosystem. So helping your children understand that, I think, is very important. I think bringing your children in on financial conversations, right? So I have some of my clients who grew up in very wealthy homes, but you cannot tell. They have no understanding of money whatsoever.
Mm.
It's great that their parents made these great decisions, but they passed on none of the knowledge. I was
Okay.
reading a statistic the other day that talked about in many Black families, the wealth doesn't make it past the generation that accumulated it, right? And so when you look towards the big power families, right? The Rockefellers, the Walton family, the Hiltons, the Ford family, all of those, generations upon generations upon generations. But that's because not only is the wealth passed down, the wealth knowledge is passed down too. So even if you feel like I don't have a lot of money, I don't want to bring my child in on this, that is the best thing you could do for your child. I don't believe in stressing out a child. And like, you don't have to sit down with your child and be like, listen, I don't know how we're gonna pay rent. What's your idea? Like
Yeah.
like because it's still a sensitive brain that's forming. But
Yeah.
for them to come to the table when you have your monthly money date, right? It's a fun monthly money date. And we sit down and we talk about, okay, these are the things that's due. When you walk into this house and you feel cold AC, then this is, what that costs. When you have these groceries, this is what that costs. When you have, this YouTube TV or Hulu or Netflix, this is what that costs. So they get an understanding of it's not just magically appearing. It's
Yeah.
it's money being attributed to it is very key. I also
Okay.
feel like there's a lot of digital banks that offer ways for teens to start their own accounts. So being able to get into the process of understanding budgeting very young, but using it in the real world, right? Like not just numbers. I remember when I was young and there would be like banks that would come to our classroom and we would do like fake money and all of that. And our
Yeah.
monopoly money. And it was like, cool, here goes 500 because I could just make it happen. But
Yeah.
I promise you, you will never see a child budget better than when it's with their own money. When
Real
it's
money.
mom and dad's money, it's like, oh, let's get everything. When it's
Yeah.
their money, they're like, I don't want
Do
it.
I really want this? Do I need it?
Right. And so understanding that, and then for very young kids, um, there was an activity that I saw the other day. I was like, when my son gets a little older, I'm gonna try it with him. But understanding compound interest and understanding the magnitude of time is a concept that many of us don't get until well into our 20s and 30s. But if you can understand that young, then you are so ahead of the game. So it's the activity is that you give them a piggy bank, you put it in their room. And for every night that they don't touch the money in their piggy bank, you add something to it, right? But you give them activities during the day to kind of challenge them to use the money. But you're allowing them to make the decision I'm not going to touch my money at all. So you're like, hey, do you want to go get some treats, some snacks, get $1 out your piggy bank. And if they
Mm-hmm.
don't touch the money, then you slip another quarter or a dollar, or kids have high hopes these days. Sometimes you got to put
They
10.
want a 20.
Yeah, yeah. My friend the other day, she did the tooth fairy. She left a $10 bill, and her son was like, 10. What
That's
happened?
it.
And I was like, "Woo! Let me get ready now." The tooth fairy, the prices went up.
Yes.
Yeah, so you keep adding money to it, and so they get it. If I don't touch the money, if I sit and I let it grow for the longer period, it will grow. And that's ways of just planting the seed of compound interest. And so when they get older, it's like, oh, I learned that when I was young. I get it that I can adapt to this type of mindset a lot earlier in life, instead of like getting it when you're 40. And if you are 40 and you're just getting it, I'm not mad at you. Like, at least you got it now. And you
Getting it
start
now.
getting it now, But if you can do anything for your kids, is see if there's a way that they can get it a little bit sooner than what you did.
A little sooner. I love that. And, just having this conversation made me think about my childhood and my upbringing. And I didn't grow up with a lot of money. But I would say that knowledge was definitely something that was passed on, and the whole importance of creating a monthly budget. So, bringing the children into the room, bringing them to the table when you're having the money day and going over the bills and the expenses. My grandmother actually did that with me, and I saw her budget. She kept it on like a document, and she added a new page every month. There was a page, and she wrote out line by line what we owed, and what we had to give to the church, what we had to do for every dollar was basically accounted for. Something had to be saved, and I can remember doing that with her. And so now that I'm an adult, I don't do it physically on a sheet of paper, but that same concept has followed me. And even having a relationship with the bank, my bank account that I have to this day was the account that my grandmother opened for me when I was in elementary school. And so I have, I'm not going to tell you my age, but, I have my entire lifetime, in a relationship with this banking institution here in Memphis, because that was a part of my upbringing. So parents, grandparents, bring the children into the conversation. And if you don't have a lot of, money to pass down or to share with them, then that knowledge is so valuable to be
so valuable. Yeah. And that is what we call intellectual inheritance, right? Because it planted seeds in you. It was behavior that you recognized when it came time for you to use it, and it passed the baton in some type of way. So that intellectual inheritance is very important too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was a yellow legal pad. My sister is in the audience and she's typing. It was a yellow legal pad. Yes, it was a yellow legal pad that she wrote the bills on in the budget, and there was a different sheet for every month of the year, and we did it every month like clockwork. So
yeah.
So as we bring this to a close, Dr. Nicole, I could talk about money and wealth and legacy all night long with you, but I'm going to be respectful of your time. I know you have a family and a business to get back to. So the last question before we wrap is just about, Black businesses and the impact that this pandemic is having on Black businesses. And I've seen some very dismal and bleak statistics, just talking about that more than 2 out of 5 small businesses and self-employed workers have been forced to close during this pandemic. And it's estimated that this is twice the rate of white businesses. And many of these Black businesses are not expected to be able to weather this financial storm and will remain shuttered after the pandemic is over. So for those of us that want to do our part, we are consumers, maybe some of us overconsume, but we, Black people, Black America, we have the buying power. So what can we do? How can we help to support and even save some of our Black-owned businesses that are being so, hard hit by this pandemic?
Okay, so first off, many of these Black businesses weren't operating well before the pandemic, right? So this is a beautiful time for you to have that self-talk with yourself and say it's time to pivot, right? So what you don't want to do is be on a sinking ship and just continue to go down with it. There are some businesses that they relied on walk-in traffic. They relied on a certain economy to thrive. And so if the writing is on the wall, then pivot so that when people start to support you with the new venture, it makes sense. It's not just pacifying you until you have to eventually close doors anyway. So first and foremost, if you already see the future already looks bleak. Um, based upon what's happening, there might be another surge of this, it might be another lockdown, any of those type of things. If you can pivot in any way, do so that people can support you and it can really make a difference. That's first and foremost. Two, having your stuff together so that you can apply for the PPP loans, you can apply for the government assistance, you can apply for the different things that can help you. Like the paycheck protection only works if you have payroll. And so
Right.
and for the people who are applying that it did not go to payroll, there's going to be so much backfire from this,
Yeah.
right? And I am so scared to see that. Like, it's just so many Black people who went out for a lot of these things, and because they need, I mean, everybody needed money, right? Like, everybody needed money, but it's one person you can't play with, and that's the government. Like,
Right.
you can't. It would have been better to do a GoFundMe account, or do a friend and family raise or something, because there are legal actions that I'm starting to see transpire left and right for people who did not use the funds as they said that they intended to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
So that next is making sure you have the proper insurances and everything on your business so that it can, if you do have to close down, you can do it in a way that you can still win off of it, right? So there are ways to properly insure things. And if it's an act of God, like this pandemic is considered an act of
Act of
God,
God.
then
Mm-hmm.
you're able to use your insurances to keep you from having to bottom out in your personal life, right? Like, you might lose the business, but in no way do you want to lose the house or anything else personally.
Yeah.
So, just having that. For those who want to support Black businesses, um, there are so many directories that are popping up right now. It's so beautiful. Beyonce did her Black business directory.
Yeah.
There's a site called the Black Wallet that showcases a lot of businesses. Most marketplaces, from Amazon to Facebook Marketplace to Uber Eats to just everything, they have some type of Black excellence, Black business support,
Mm-hmm.
Black collective, just something in that you can just take a few extra seconds and support those that are in need. But also, too, a part of supporting businesses is understanding that many Black businesses are not Amazon and are definitely not Amazon Prime, right? For Amazon Prime to get you your stuff in 24 hours, for it to drop out the sky as soon as you make an order, is because they have an infrastructure of millions of people that are handling this, and uh, you know, uh, a system that allows
Yes.
that to happen. Many Black businesses, if you really want to support them, you can't order something in 2 days, start stressing them out about where your order.
Where's my order? And then
Right.
posting comments and putting them on blast on the internet.
Right. We have to heal as a community in that space too, with dragging Black businesses. Like,
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of brick and mortars. I've owned a co-working space in Atlanta. I've owned a beauty parlor and nail shop in Atlanta. I've lived, multiple lives. But what I would notice is that so many people got joy on dragging Black businesses. Like, that just, you can go into a department store and have a bad experience, and you would never go back on Facebook and be like, I hate Macy's. That's why I don't deal with Macy's, because
Yeah.
such and such. But you will go into a Black boutique, and then all of a sudden it's like, I need to take my money elsewhere.
Yes.
And when you read it, it's like, it just really sounds like you had a personal issue. It doesn't sound like the
Mm-hmm.
business was at flaw, but now you've caused them so much you caused their rating to go down. You
Yes.
caused them to get potential business. They might have been applying for a loan and now they have this negative stuff they have to deal with.
Yes.
And then also in the Black community, there's just people have gotten to doing chargebacks, receiving product that they definitely ordered and then placing chargebacks on top of that.
Mhm.
And it's keeping a lot of Black businesses from being able to even use a lot of the payment platforms because they had
Yeah.
these negative ratings. So
Yes.
if you're going to support a Black business, support them all the way. And what's even more important too, if you're working from home, you have some extra time, then if you can go and volunteer with one of these businesses, the help is needed, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
if a business is booming right now, they probably need help. They
They
need
need
help.
some extra hands to process
Yeah,
orders, to stuff boxes, to drop things off.
yeah.
Yes.
So if you want to see them survive, then help them during this time, and the best way to increase your blessing bucket is for you to go get blessings. The best way for
Yeah.
you to increase your financial pocket is for you to go and be a financial blessing to somebody else.
Yes.
And so if you really want to support Black businesses, like you really want to support them, figure out how can you give in this time of need, and not just with dollars, but how can you share them with your network? How can you help get them out there?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of businesses closing, but the businesses that are booming, it's because people have all woken up across the world and it's like, I actually haven't been shopping with Black businesses. I need to be more
Mhm.
committed to that. And so we
Mhm.
need to do what we can to help these businesses survive, so that they stay front of mind to the world because they're
Yeah.
deserving of the whole world's dollars. Black businesses don't just need Black dollars, they need all dollars
Yes.
too.
Come
And
on.
so
Come on.
however we can help in that way, then dig deep and let those businesses thrive because they're going to be the next bailout that we need,
For
right? Like
sure.
I saw a sign that said support local because Amazon is not going to sponsor the little league baseball team.
In your
Yeah,
neighborhood.
in your neighborhood.
Right.
Amazon's not going to sponsor the I'm a big fan of Cynthia Daniels, who's in Memphis, and
Oh yeah.
she just did
A night at the park.
a
I
night at
went
the
to see
park,
the
right?
Wiz. It was
Right.
incredible.
Yeah. And I thought it was so beautiful, but
Yeah.
all those small businesses attached to it, right? And so
Yeah.
that is how that becomes the bailout we need. You want these small businesses to do well so that they can cycle back into our communities because the big box businesses, the small community stuff is never going to be their
On
issue.
their radar. No.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, Dr. Nicole, we have talked about everything I wanted to touch on and then some. Thank you so much for carving out time to be on this episode of Live with the Fab Squad as we talked about weathering this financial storm. And I want to be sure to let everyone know how they can remain in contact with you. Your company, Amount Financial, has a website that everyone can visit to
Oh,
stay
look at
connected
you
with
being
Dr. Nicole.
fancy.
And so,
Oh.
yeah, so she has a lot of things that she's working on, that she's doing. And so, if you need additional resources, you want to dig deeper with her, then you can get at her at amountfinancial.com.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, my pleasure. So, Fab Squad, until next time, bye.